This week I've read this book, Through the Shattered Looking Glass by M.L. Crane. I've actually had this book for a while, but I bought it on Kindle because I'm impatient, but then I didn't read it because reading ebooks doesn't feel the same as reading a real book. Never let it be said that I'm not a massive contradiction, but I've read it now, so here are a few thoughts. And because it's a relatively new book, I'm going to try and keep this video as spoiler free as I can. Fingers crossed. This book is about a girl called Alice who lives in a beach house with her girlfriend Rose. She's excited to be starting an internship with a respected psychiatrist called Dr. Lewis C. Pelletier, a nod to the original story's author Lewis Carroll, I'm assuming. So straight away I had questions. 1. How was this girl able to afford a beach house? I mean, it wasn't specified whether she owned it or rented it, but either way, as an intern, which as far as I understand are unpaid excuses for learning experiences, how could she have the money for an idyllic property by the beach with her girlfriend of unspecified profession stroke income? But I assume that this would become clear further in the book. Maybe she had rich indulgent parents who were financing her studies, or maybe she was a rich orphan who could afford to work for free without having to beat off the bailiffs. 2. At the beginning of the book, Alice, awaking from a terrifying nightmare, receives a phone call. But we only get her side of the conversation, which would have made sense if it were told from another character's point of view, but it wasn't. And normally in a book you get to read both sides of the conversation unless there's a clear reason not to. And as I already pointed out, there wasn't. And this was just the beginning of the questions that started running through my mind as I continued to read this book. Although I'm kind of familiar with the story this book was inspired by, I've only read the abridged children's versions as a child and seen the films and cartoon adaptations and not read the original book, for shame. So the fact that the story was filled with bizarre and curious incidents wasn't exactly shocking, but for a good part of this story I was on a merry-go-round of crazy whacked out narrative, which put me in a perma state of what on earth is happening here? As she begins her internship with the doctor, strange things start to happen to Alice. And not just the usual odd stuff that can happen with boss types. As the story progresses, other members of staff seem pretty weird too. After a while I started to wonder if it was going to be like the Orient Express and they all did it, whatever it was. Because bear in mind I still have no idea what's really happening to this girl, but whatever it is seems to be a severe case of gaslighting. Apart from wondering what exactly they were trying to achieve, I was also trying to work out how many of them were in on it, whatever it was. Maybe she was a rich heiress and this was a ploy to have her declared insane and take her money. Or maybe they were the lunatics running the asylum and intended to make her as mad as they were. So, woven through the current day narrative, there were flashbacks to Alice's past, which wasn't a nice, happy past. And I don't feel it's too much of a spoiler to mention this, as it was alluded to in the synopsis and becomes pretty clear early on in the story. But although it takes a while to fully form, it's soon clear that Alice had a tragic backstory. Moving on to the conclusion of the story, I'm not going to give away what happened nor who was responsible, but I will say that all the what on earth moments did suddenly all make sense, like a billion-piece jigsaw finally falling into place. And suddenly it was like, oh, now I get it. And the 2 questions I'd had at the beginning made sense, along with many other questions I'd had later on. And this is where I finish so I don't give away too many details, which I really don't want to do. I will say though that the book clearly has a sequel, which I do want to read, because although enough questions were answered that the book did make sense eventually, some questions still remain. Particularly one question that came quite close to the end and was a "you can't be serious" moment. So did I enjoy this book? Although it made me cringe in parts, which I'm sure it intended to do, I did like this story and read it in one sitting. So I am glad that I read this book, even if it did take me a while to get round to it, and I do want to find out what happens next. So that's it for now, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Bye.